Good morning, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity. I'd like to thank my co-authors and my supervisors, Dr. Bigham and Dr. Karmali. Okay, I have no conflicts of interest to disclose. So Canada is one of the top contributing countries to global global emissions. Despite that, there's limited Canadian data on the impact of our healthcare system, as well specifically our surgical care. Therefore, we aimed to characterize the current perspectives and practice patterns of general surgeons as they relate to environmental sustainability. We did this by creating an online survey and distributing it via direct email or through our Canadian Association of General Surgeons. Participation was optional, no incentives were offered, and we were able to track respondents as well as non-respondents. Our survey was open for 6 months, and we sent 3 email reminders. And at the end, our Likert scale type responses were statistically analyzed, and our open-ended responses were thematically analyzed. In total, we had 270 responses for a response rate of 20%. As you can see, about 2/3 of our respondents were male, and we had nearly a 50-50 split between community and academic surgeons. We ran a subgroup analysis on gender and practice setting, which yielded no significant differences. So what did we learn? Firstly, surgeons care about the environment. When asked about environmental sustainability being important to them, you can see that nearly 90% of surgeons agree that it is important, and 70% choose more sustainable alternatives in the operating room when they're available. Furthermore, surgeons acknowledge that there's room for improvement as well, generally in operating rooms within Canada, as well as within their own surgical practices. But what are the barriers that are stopping us from implementing change? The first barrier we identified through our survey is the lack of reusable options. For example, we asked surgeons how often they use disposable drapes for lap choles, and about 80% or more use disposable drapes all the time. When we asked how often they actually have reusable drapes available, only 20% work at a site where they have that. So lack of reusable options is a major barrier in Canada. Secondly, the impact on patient care. We asked regarding disposable laparoscopic ports, and you can see that many surgeons often or always use disposable laparoscopic ports, despite over 70% having reusable ports available. Why is this? Many surgeons cited obesity as a contributing factor to why they choose disposable ports over reusable ports. So surgeons won't choose alternatives that negatively impact their patient care. Lastly, we asked surgeons whether they would choose a sustainable alternative even if it increased their OR time or OR cost. And we found that surgeons want to be more sustainable even if it takes longer or costs more, within reason. As you can see in these graphs here, the amount of agreeable surgeons decreases as the cost or the time increases, which makes sense. And lastly, we asked surgeons about ideas to improve, and out of their responses, we came up with 4 different themes. The first is resource stewardship on an individual level. The second one is building more sustainable systems at our administrative level. And then thirdly is incentivizing and standardizing sustainability at the government industry level. And lastly is educating and increasing the amount of data we have at an academic level. Our study has a few limitations. Mainly, our distribution was limited to only members of our national association and those with publicly available email addresses. We had a relatively low response rate and possibly a preference for surgeons who were already interested in environmental sustainability to begin with. And then in conclusion, we learned that Canadian surgeons generally agree that environmental sustainability is an important issue that merits action. And despite several barriers, surgeons are motivated to improve and are seeking change beyond an individual level. A couple of next steps that we came up with was to increase the amount of objective data that we have, or establish a national working group. And then lastly was to continue the discourse around environmental sustainability, much like we're doing today. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.